Hello, it's your girl Lizzabitty. I'm happy you decided to join me today. So please do me a favor. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. If you have not subscribed, please do so. And if you like the content that I put out, please like the video. Hello and welcome back to the Lizzabitty channel, okay? I am your host, Lizzabitty. Today's conversation is about why Blacks do not travel to Alkebulan. This is a point of contention for me. I believe I mentioned in a previous video that my first time on the continent, I was writing about that a lot. And of course, the people who were on my list to get my daily journal entries, they had some choice words for me, okay? A lot of it stemmed from folks saying that, continental Africans don't like Blacks in the diaspora. Let me say this. A lot of that is mere propaganda to keep us divided, because as a collective, we are very, very powerful. Now, I'm not saying that there's no truth in that. I never said that. I never said that. But what I am saying to you is, that's not the biggest reason why. Let's talk about a few things. Number one of the reasons I feel like Blacks in the diaspora do not travel to Mother Alkebulan is purely financial. Recently, I had the Pan-Africanist Strikes Back on my show, and we were talking about the passport craze. By this line of folks who were in New York. The line was like 7 hours long so people could get passports. And he was saying that he didn't think it was more than a normal ploy because things were actually opening up and people want to travel. His contention was they're going to go to cheap places. And there you have it. Number one, of course, is financial. It is, I don't use the word costly because everything is relative to everyone's individual budget and what they can afford. But if you have spent your money on a trip to Jamaica and the Dominican in 1 year, you've had enough money to likely garner a ticket on the continent someplace. Now, I say that to also understand, number two, there is just a bias into traveling, coming to the continent. Why? Because of propaganda. And I'm going to come back with a video about media control and what we have to do as a people. And something that I'm actually working on right now. Of course, it's small scale, but it is hopefully going to turn into something that I hope can be grand one day. Propaganda of the West in terms of how they made Alkebulan to be has had us to shy away from that. We just moved on away because we figured, well, we don't want to be over there. Why would I want to be there with that? versus the propaganda machine with the continental Africans that they get about us, and they think that when we come over, we have all this elaborate money. They say, oh, you're so rich. I remember when I lived in Malawi, and there was a running stereotype that if you were fat, you were rich, because that meant you had lots of food to eat. And I believe I told you that at the time they was going through a severe drought. So it was hilarious. One of my colleagues, she was a little on the heavier side. And oh yeah, she was an older woman, and they would always jive with her and be like, oh, you have so much money. You have such wealth. So I'm saying that's one of the reasons as well. It's the propaganda machine. It's the propaganda machine. Okay. Number 3. We just don't know. Even though you can go anywhere in a book can take you many places. There is nothing like what you're reading in print actually coming to fruition. If we don't know what that place garners, it's kind of toxic for us to speak ill about it. But at the same time, things that we do read, if we're removing ourselves from the propaganda machine, it should have sparked some interest. Like, it used to always fascinate me when I was much younger, how 25-20s would always send their kids to Europe. Whereas for us, like, you know, high school trip to South Padre Island in Texas, or to Florida, or to the Caribbean, those places that, again, they don't cost as much. But my theory is this. My theory is, you have a lot of us, and people have a right to spend their money how they want to. You have to excuse me, it's nighttime. They do. I can't tell adults how to spend their money. But when someone says to me, if I say to you, okay, well, let's fly into Nairobi and go on a trip down to the Great Rift Valley, Lake Nakuru, you know, somewhere like this. And you come back and you say to me, well, how much is the flight? And I'll tell you what the flight is. Don't say to me, well, that's too expensive, but you're riding around in the BMW, a Mercedes, you got Louis Vuitton bags, you got Gucci bags, you got all this stuff. So remember, all of that, again, is relative. Number 4, why blacks in the diaspora are not traveling to Alkebulan, if even for a visit. They just don't care. I'm going to be honest with you. They just don't care. They could care less about what's happening across the water. Whatever happens across the Atlantic, they're not even bothered by it. They just don't care. You know, there's really nothing to say. I mean, people, whatever is important to you, generally said, if it's important to you, it's in the front of you. So that never enters their mind. And then you say to yourself, well, okay, well, you don't care, but you always are in Europe. Like, do you remember this trend? And I think it's still a trend right now. I never forget when I returned from Malawi and I was back in the U.S. workforce. What I found was this. Okay? And you're going to find this interesting. or you may have thought about this and you just never articulated it. I'm seeing all these couples getting married, blacks now, okay? And so when you ask them where they're going on their honeymoon, guess where they were going on their honeymoon? Paris, France. And making it to be this love affair that is beyond, and being at the Eiffel Tower. And I've been all over France. Let me explain something to you. France has never been on my top 5. Really, there's no place outside of Alkebulan. Let me see. One place that is even in my top 5 list of places to visit. So they would always shock me. It would always shock me that they would pick Paris, France. So again, not caring. And we all know that Europe is costly as well. So again, they don't care. They don't care. They have removed themselves from the idea of connecting in that manner, in connecting in terms of their ancestry. Now think of this, because I had a comment in a few videos before about this as well. Because you've had people to say, well, my ancestors didn't come from Africa. Okay? Alkebulan. So, let us clear the air right now. I'm going to give you a quick, brief history lesson. All right? At one time, thousands of years ago, the land on earth was together at some point. Now, sure, there has been bodies of water all the way around. You have what they call continental drift. I'm sure you all know that water erodes things over time. So what do you think she does to land over time? Okay? So think of the land being one unit, and over time it began to move apart. So as the land began to move apart, you had people on those areas, those land masses as well. But they originated Alkebulan. You have white historians and black historians and archaeologists that the oldest form of life was found Mother Alkebulan. I know for some people that is hard to accept. Too bad. It's facts. So yes, you do have people whose genealogy per se, if they were to look it up, outside of African ancestry and things like this, that they can find their selves, let's say, intermingled, or their lineage, their genealogy, with natives of that landmass. So let's talk about North America. We call them Indians, but they're basically aboriginals, just like in Australia, what they call them there as well. So yes, that genetic structure and all of that, all of the data that's collected, sure, you could trace your genealogy to those natives because they were black. There has been no place on Mother Earth that melanated people have never touched. We are the first people. We're so beautiful. Our melanin, it glistens. We come in all gorgeous, beautiful brown, dark brown. We just come in an array of hues. Gorgeous hues, okay? But some of us, we just are not in tune, and so we just remove ourselves from it at all cost. So I say to you, these are the reasons why. Blacks in the diaspora, do not travel to Alkebulan.